Hi, I'm Pastor Pat Kriss, pastor of First Congregational Church here in Danbury, and we're visiting our sister city right now because they have a memorial that includes a piece of the World Trade Center. You know, I remember that morning with the sky as crystal clear, about 8:45 when I left my house. I wasn't a pastor then, I wasn't even considering it, but I was working for a social service agency down in Norwalk. And as I drove, I heard on the radio that a commuter plane had hit the World Trade Center. I thought that was strange. In the 10 minutes it took me to get to my office where I was supposed to meet Dave Morgan, who was the head of our marketing committee, they suddenly said it wasn't a commuter plane, it was a commercial plane. And when I got into the office and finally Dave arrived, I told him what had happened, and he turned white because he says, my wife is supposed to be at a meeting in the World Trade Center today. And so I gave him the phone and we turned on the radio, and he tried to reach his wife. She was one of those lucky people who got caught in Midtown traffic and was going to be late for her appointment. So he reached his wife. And then I started thinking about my two friends that I had that worked in the World Trade Center, Chuck Zion and Ben Fisher. Now, Ben had been in the World Trade Center the first time it was hit. And most people don't realize that the World Trade Center was first hit by terrorists back in 1993 who tried to blow it up from underneath in the parking garage. And Ben, who worked on the 104th floor at Cantor Fitzgerald, did make it all the way down and made it out. And he came back to the school where his wife was chairman. We saw him covered in soot with two streets of ash coming out of his nose. And he was angry, but he was alive. I wondered at that point where they were at the moment. I wondered too about Bill Pullman, who was someone who worked with my husband and had just recently taken a job at the World Trade Center. What I didn't know is that he was in the South Tower of World Trade Center. And in fact, his office was on the floor where the second plane hit. He was on the phone that morning with his wife when the phone went dead. So at that point, our social workers at the agency, because we were all social worker types there, were becoming very anxious and upset because they couldn't see what was going on. So I decided I'm going to go back home. I didn't live that far away, and bring a TV set, which I did. And as I drove, it was a surreal scene because every person that you saw in another car, when you pulled up to a light, we all just sat there and shook our heads, and we all looked in shock. So as I was driving, the South Tower, the crews at the FDNY were running into the structure to climb those stairs and save people. And so was Father Michael Judge. And Father Michael was a wonderful man that they all loved. He was always there when there was a problem. And he ran into the South Tower. Not long after he came in, a chunk of the fallen concrete hit Father Michael and killed him. And the FDNY, weeping, carried Father Michael out of the structure. People were frozen in the street, astonished and looking. And at that moment, the first tower fell. And they saw a wall, a tsunami of ash coming at them, and they ran, and they caught up with them. And soon they were all one color, no matter what color they were all the color of ash, one people. The interesting thing was, I found out after the fact that so Ben led his people down from Cantor Fitzgerald all the way down. He got them down all the way to the lobby, But when he was on the 20th floor, he and another employee came upon a woman who was terrified, frozen in fear on the stairs. So he and his friends said, we'll stay here because the FDNY is going to come back and get us. And so they stayed with her. You know, he'd gotten out once, right? So there was no reason why he shouldn't get out a second time. Minutes later, the North Tower collapsed, where two heroes comforted a woman while they waited to be saved. At his funeral a month later, there were 1,000 people, including all the people that he had led out of the inferno, saying, "Thank you, Ben." So I brought the TV back to the office, the social work office, set it up, and that's when it started. Phone calls started coming in, not from Norwalk, but from Manhattan. People cringing and curled up on the floor of their apartments, terrified. We still don't know why they decided to call the social service agency in Norwalk, but all of us were able to comfort and hold hands with them over a distance. I want you to realize that the world that day was not filled just with hatred on that crystal clear day. It was filled also with the creation of new families who cared for people just because they were fellow human beings. The hardest part came at the end of the day, that particular day, when people started coming down to the train stations around here in Wilton and in Reading and Norwalk, waiting for somebody to get off the train. Waiting for someone to get off the train who didn't come back. And we lost here in Danbury 3 particular people: Michael Jacobs, James Thomas Waters, and Candace Lee Williams. And this beautiful memorial on Main Street is not only to them, but to the 161 people from Connecticut who died that day, all because of fear and hatred. I want you to remember them with a crystal clear memory today. And I want you to remember that hatred doesn't triumph. Crystal clear memory of who they were and what they taught us and how we've grown since that day is what matters. Please say that prayer today. Thank you.